Hello and welcome to NewsNight. I'm Ladi Akiridoluale. It's our pleasure to have you join us. Nigeria's Democracy Day is being marked on June 12, as is now customary. The role of that date in Nigeria's struggle for democracy and development is our focus in this edition of NewsNight. 22 years on, what, if any, lessons have been learned from the events of June 12, and what impact have this had on the current governance structure in Nigeria? NewsNight talks to one of the key actors in the June 12 struggle, a rights activist and politician, senior advocate of Nigeria, and current Minister of State, Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo. Honorable Minister, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
June 12 is something that everybody talks about, people mention, but not too many people really know about June 12 and about some of the principal actors in June 12 or the roles that they played. You were one of those who played a key role during that crisis. And I'm wondering if you could remind us what that role was, especially for those who are listening who don't know.
Well, basically, for some of us, for few of us who they termed the radical lawyers at that time,
Indeed.
Our roles were dual, okay? Many people took part in protests and street protests and all of that. But for some of us, it was then, apart from those protests we took part in, we were also part of the legal team of all of those who were involved in the June 12 struggle. So that's the unique advantage many of us had, and some of us had, and some of us who worked with Ganifarumi at that time, Chief Ganifarumi, you know too that we represented all of those who were arrested.
And there were a lot of people who were arrested.
In fact, the JACON, NADECO, CLO, all of those groups. So for some of us, apart from all the protests, in fact, our roles were even triple. Permit me to say so. Because apart from all those protests and legal battles, we now also metamorphosed into a political movement meant to actualize June 12, and that was the national conscience. We formed the national conscience. So it was three, and we were at the deep end of it all. Luckily for some of us, it was just at the cusp of our being lawyers when I was called to the bar in 1993. I was just called to the bar when
the whole thing
started. And that was when I just started work with Ganifarumi. And he selected a few of us to do the battle with him. And so we represented people like Beko Ransom Kuti. I was there. I was led the defense, for him. Frank Kokori, Adenija Adele, who was part of NADECO then at that time. All those NADECO leaders. I represented almost all of them in court. Ganifarumi pushed me to the front of it. When Beko was also arrested for treasonable felony, because they felt he also were pushing for June 12.
Right.
I was the lead counsel for Beko Ransom Kuti.
This was now, of course, in 1995.
Yeah, this was 1995, because the June 12 struggle spanned from 1993 up to 1998, when Abacha actually died.
Right.
So the June 12 struggle, the actual struggle was a 5-year struggle. But thereafter, of course, people kept the principles alive and the spirits alive and all of that. So beyond the battles in courts, we also had to take part in a lot of street protests to ensure that the mandate of Abiola at that time was restored and democracy was restored. In fact, I was arrested on June 11, 1995, because a day to June 12, just like we have now. Normally you will see clouds gathering everywhere, protests, and we didn't have things like your famous Twitter now and Instagram and all that. So we did it the hard way. We were doing leafleteering, posters, and then in the process, they will arrest you. So it's not like people
because you were faced with the military then.
Yes, it's not like people who sit in the comfort of their homes now behind their keypad and mobilize people and nobody knows where you are. No, you'll be on the streets. You'll be giving out leaflets on the streets like that to people. Mobilizing them and telling them they had to gather either at Yaba or at Jota and all of that. I did that. I was the first northern coordinator of the National Conscience, the movement that was formed by Ganifarumi. And I was arrested twice in Bauchi while distributing leaflets in Bauchi. I detained, let go. I was arrested in Kano again. And then on June 11, 1995, we were all arrested and locked up at Shangisha there. SSS, DSS.
The CMD Avenue.
Exactly, to ensure that normally they will arrest us, make sure June 12 passes away, and then they will let us go again and all that. Some of us were charged to court for all that. So we were thrown into the deep end of the battle at that time, and it was a very, very revealing experience, because we, as young people then, we had to look up to mentors at that time who were leaders of the movements, Ganifarumi and all of them. Wole Soyinka was leading Nalikon.
Nalikon, yes, Nalikon.
He was leading Nalikon, all of them. Bekor and Somkuti, Frederick Fashion, and of course, Abraham Adesanya was leading Nadeko, and all of that. So they had to guide us as young ones and all that to ensure that we did not stray away. We kept the focus alive. So, that was it.
I want you to talk a little bit about those people, because, of course, up till now, you've mentioned the late Chief Ganifarumi several times, and it came to me as somewhat of a shock when quite a number of people appear not to know who Chief Ganifarumi is, or what role, in fact, Chief Ganifarumi played in June 12, because when he was given the national honor of Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, there were quite a lot of people, particularly on social media, who said, "Who is this? Why is?"
It's so sad that we have removed history from our curriculum. And in fact, the history we teach cannot only be history of those who serve the country in official capacities. I think that's one of the mistakes we are making. Oh, who was the first Northern governor? Who was the first president of Nigeria? No, I think that is wrong. There are people who have made changes in this country, who have affected things in this country more than those who hold official positions. For one, of course, was my late boss, Chief Ganifarumi. These were people who laid their lives down for democracy. People who decided to leave their comfort zone to make sure democracy thrives. And so we need to go and teach history. The day I nearly left social media, and I'm sorry to say this, without denigrating those who rely so much on social media. The day I nearly left social media was when I saw somebody on social media who had about maybe 500,000 followers, and it was entering his head. And the guy said, "How can you compare Ganifarumi to me?" I saw that on social media. Laddie, I just flipped that day. It's to show you the shallowness of what we have now. And it's not their fault. We need to teach them history. We need to keep them alive. And you see, most of these things are not available perhaps on the internet. We need to put them on the internet, because most of those things that were written there were written in an analog form.
Correct.
The teachings and the writing and the speeches of Ganifarumi, I think we need to do a website to put all the struggles of some of these people there. Before Ganifarumi died, he opened, in his part of his legacies, he said they would put on this library, they should keep the library alive, and all his writings and struggles and all that, including his prison uniform.
Right.
They should keep it there for people to go and see and all that. But I think people don't live in the actual space these days, in the real world. They live in the virtual world. So I think that kind of library should be carried to the virtual world.
So that these people can also see.
They can see, but that is where we find ourselves today. But we need to teach them some of these things.
June 12, there was so much, as you said, there was so much made of it at the time. It was a crucial election. It came at the end of a very long transition process, very expensive, very tedious process, and then the election was cancelled. For reasons that till today, almost 30 years later, people are still speculating as to what the real reason was. But it has endured. This administration in which you serve now decided that rather than May 29, this June 12 was actually the foundation of this democracy, and therefore it should be the day that should be marked as Democracy Day. Do you think, perhaps, given your dual role as having participated at that level and the participation that you've had now and what you've done in between, both as a lawyer, an activist, a critic, and now as a politician, do you think as a country and as a class, a society, we've taken some of the key lessons that June 12 brought to the fore and we have translated those into some kind of action today that shows that perhaps we will not go that way again at any point?
I think one of the most critical steps we have taken, and credit to President Muhammadu Buhari, permit me to be biased here, because I serve here, but this is, empirical, evidence, is that what Southern presidents could not do for 16 years, they could not summon the courage to just simply recognize Chief Abiola, not only that, recognize June 12th as a real democracy day, entrench it in the spirits of Nigerians. I mean, you're talking about history now.
Yes.
One way to entrench history in the minds of the youth coming up is to declare such days as public holidays. I mean, no people who didn't know Martin Luther King. Till today, there's a public holiday in America for Martin Luther King. Indeed. And so the youth will say, why are we declaring a public holiday for Martin Luther King? And they will tell them that this is the man on whose back America, the blacks in America today, have, come to fall. And so tomorrow, Nigerians will ask, the youth coming up, why are we, declaring June 12th a public holiday? And I guess I tell you this, no other government dare change that date again, because Buhari has had the courage to do that.
And institutionalize it in law.
And in law. And, like I said, please forgive me to be political here too. And I saw a statement this morning by CMPP or this PDP people and all that. And they were criticizing that Nigerians should beware of June 12th. I said, hey, come on. I mean, for 16 years, you could not have the courage to do it, and you criticize a man who has now done it. And not only that, and to recognize Abiola virtually as a past president, give him the highest honor, and then honor some of the heroes who fought and died for June 12th, including my late boss that was given the second highest honor in Nigeria. I mean, all credit to President Buhari, but that is not all the battle. We also need to internalize the spirit of democracy and to ensure that we protect democracy. We protect and preserve democracy to the extent that nothing again should take us to the dark days of military rule. But I think that is where some of us missed it in 1999.
How so?
We were prepared, we were struggling for democracy. We were campaigning for democracy. We were campaigning against military rule. But we're not organized as a body to take power from the military. We're not organized. And so many of us missed the train. And I think that is one of the biggest mistakes. Most of the activists, most of those who fought for June 12th, one of the biggest mistakes they made. And I think even Ganifarumi till today, he regretted that decision because in 2003, he suddenly saw the need to participate in the process, and he wanted to be president. And that was when national conscience transmuted to a national conscience party.
Yeah.
Okay, at that point I had left. But then, if we had participated and organized ourselves in 1999, NADECO tried, because the NADECO you are seeing today is the part of the APC. I hope you know that.
Yes, well, it used to be the
NADECO
AD, that became
transmuted to AD transmuted to ACN, and on, and that's a part of the APC that you see today. Is the NADECO trail that brought us to APC, and that's why naturally you see someone like me in APC. That's the justification for it. But then we needed to participate. The African National Congress, when they fought all their lives against white domination, they were also organized as a political group, the ANC.
And therefore they were ready to take the power.
And that was why Mandela was ready to take power. So the greatest tragedy we found ourselves was that after all the struggle in 1999, the people who fought against the military still dictated the pace and dictated the structure of what they were leaving behind. And that's why they were able to bring somebody like Obasanjo, who was anti-June 12. I mean, we can say that openly. Who was anti-June 12, who was against Abiola, and who said openly that Abiola was not the hero at that time, or was not, he used the word.
The Messiah.
He was not the Messiah we're looking for at that time, from his own personal biases. And so somebody like that who spoke against June 12 was then the greatest beneficiary of June 12. And many of us found ourselves in the trenches again, fighting against Obasanjo and his tendencies and all of that at that time. So that, I think, is where we missed it. And so it was later in life that many of us scrambled to try to get into the system to make sure that we protect what we fought for. And that's why some of us like that today are in government. We're serving a democratic government because we also need to be in government to know, to preserve what we fought for, to preserve the tenets of what we fought for. So it's one of the mistakes we made, and if you speak to many of my comrades today, that is one of their greatest regrets.
The June 12 election brought about certain things. It exploded some myths at the time. One was the religious divide, because, again, because of history, many people do not know this, but Chief Abiola and his running mate in that election, they were both Muslims. And up until that point, the conventional wisdom was that there was a need for balancing. The contest was between that team and a team that was quote unquote balanced. But yet, the election results showed that Nigerians, the same Nigerians, voted for that team that had two Muslims on it. But today, we appear to be back to the cleavages and people fanning the embers of religious disharmony in many parts of the country. So, again, it will make some doubt that we took the necessary lesson from that election into our democracy as we have done it now for 22 years. Do you agree with that assessment? Is it true?
Well, I think the annulment took us back to these our, cleavages, like you call them, Muslim-Christian cleavage, North-South cleavage. It took us back. And that is one of the that's one of the damage that the annulment did, to our body politic. Because, of course, in the absence of a credible explanation for the annulment then, it was then concluded that perhaps the North didn't want the South to rule, because then we had all kinds of military coups that Northerners were, heads of states. And so when you do not give a credible explanation, people were bound, to reach such base conclusions. And so if you also saw the struggle then, naturally, of course, Southwest was the base of the struggle. But then we had a lot of Easterners who supported the struggle too.
Even a lot of Northerners as well.
Yes, a lot of Middle Belters and Northerners. But then, of course, after some time, little by little, people now began to see it as a Yoruba struggle because other parts wanted to move on. But they kept it burning alive in the Southwest. And that was one of the reasons Obasanjo became president. No other reason, but the fact that they needed to also quell the agitations of the Southwest at that time. So the annulment took us back in terms of national cohesion, bonding, and one Nigeria. We're moving towards one Nigeria. I pray for that day to come back. I pray. And I'm saying it from the bottom of my heart. I belong to a political party. I cannot go against my political party. I hope we get it right. But I think we cannot, with the way the country is configured now, we can't do it. There can't be a Muslim ticket like we had then in 1993. There has to be a gradual process of healing. We will come back to then where we can have a Christian ticket that will win in Muslim enclaves. We will come back to that. I'm confident Nigeria will come back to that. But the suspicions are too deep now between Christians and Muslims. People are using the pulpit, to preach hate and politics now. People are using the mosque now to preach hate and politics against other tribes, other religions. And I'm sure you've seen all that. Pastors are using pulpits to tell their congregation that some other tribes, they want to Islamize Nigeria. And the Islams are telling Nigerians that we should be careful of the Christianization of Nigeria. So that hate is deep. We need a healing process. And the healing process will not be helped if you want to run a Christian ticket now, a Christian ticket or a Muslim ticket. No party, will want to try that right now. In order not to raise these suspicions again. And we need a time of, for national healing. So I think that the lesson of June 12 is there for us to tap from, that we can't be a people without religious differences and tribal differences. It is possible in Nigeria. It is possible. And how is it possible? One, good governance. I think if we see good governance, people will not care. Secondly, a personality that cares for all. Abiola's personality had a lot to do about that victory.
That election, yes.
It wasn't about just the way Nigeria was configured then. Suspicions had always been there. But the configuration of Abiola himself, the personality of Abiola, and how people saw him helped to also bond the nation. And so going forward, it is a lesson to all upcoming Nigerian leaders and people who are aspiring to lead this nation. If you are somewhere now thinking of becoming president of Nigeria, you must be seen as acceptable to Christians without any iota of hatred for Christians. You must be seen as acceptable to Muslims without any iota of hatred for Muslims. You must see Nigerians as your own. That must be where we are. That must be the spirit we carry forward right now. But I think for now and the present, we cannot run a ticket that is fully of one religion, whether Christian or Muslim, in this country.
During this intervening period, you have also advanced legally in terms of the law. You're a senior advocate of Nigeria now. You became that a couple of years back. Why do I give that background? I give that background because I want you to now take a look at the democracy that has emerged from, I don't know whether to use the word, ashes of June 12. There are those who still refer to it, even though it's 22 years old, they say it's a nascent democracy. And then there are others who say there's nothing nascent.
In the context of world democracy, it's a nascent democracy. In the context of the oldest democracies in the world, there are democracies that are 300 years old, that are 200 years old. In the context of world democracy, it's still a nascent democracy.
Would that then be able to explain, do you think, why occasionally it seems as if we forget that this is democracy? And both as people and as groups, and even in some instances government, we tend to act like there's no need for a consensus. People talk at each other as opposed to talking to each other and accepting that things that you lawyers call freedom of expression, the allowance of the minority having their say, even if the majority will eventually have their way. I'm asking this question because at the base of democracy and why people like you and others fought and lost so much was because they believed that there was a link between what democracy brings and what the society will become. Now, do you see what I'm saying now in terms of course, people now say dividends of democracy. That's a broad term. But do you still see that link now that we are in this process, 22 years on? Are you seeing that we're on the path along which people like you thought we would have been, and why you fought so hard?
My fear is that we can erode all we have fought for. I mean, all that we have fought for can be eroded. We can lose all because of a lack of sense of history. Two angles to your question. The first one is whether we are doing things right as a government, one, and as a people, because it has to be two. Correct. To advance the cause of what we fought for and the objectives of to advance them, or we are retrogressing, we are going back, we are regressing back to where we are coming from. That's one. The second one is that whether we are seeing the fruits of what we fought for. I'll take the first one. As a people, we have to be careful too to ensure that we don't bring down democracy. Whatever happens, democracy is still the best option for a country like Nigeria. So that you can, democracy is the only civilized way to reach a consensus now. Because people vote and say, this is what we agree on. That is why we must be careful of some people who come and shout, Buhari must go, or even Jonathan must go. Let me say anybody. When we're not happy with Jonathan, we organize ourselves as a political party. We reached out to people, formed alliances, and remove the PDP from office. I expect those who are disgruntled with the APC and the Buhari government to do the same. We don't mind. This is a democracy. We have all agreed to live by democratic standards. If you lose at the polls, go and organize yourselves. Buhari and the APC has shown that it is possible. So don't come and shout, oh, I was rigged out, this and that. If you are popular on the ground, it is impossible to rig. Let me tell you something about rigging if you don't know. Ladi, I'm in the political terrain now. It is impossible to rig if you are not acceptable to the people. So anywhere you see that, oh, somebody has high votes, the most likely thing is that whether you accuse him of rigging or not, he's popular there. Because you cannot rig where they are not popular. They will kill you. Elections are not easy. INEC will be there. Have you seen boys on the field trying to protect their votes? It's life or death. It's a matter of life or death. With weapons and cudgels and everything. Not attacking, but protecting their votes. Even as an INEC official, you want to change 23 to 230. Be prepared to write your will. So, in many cases, it is defeatist of the opposition to say we were rigged out. No. Try and be popular. So I want to let you know, first of all, I'm making that proposition that it is not easy to rig and win. It's not easy. So that should not be an excuse. They should go and organize themselves. Organize, organize, and organize. The ruling party cannot rig. You push out the ruling party. We have done it, they can do it to us too. But we are also fighting on. That's one. So there's no way forward, Ladi, to your question, back to your question, than democracy. We must continue on this democratic path. It's possible to remove the ruling party through votes. Keep organizing yourselves as opposition. That's one. The second one is that I think in terms of the dividends of democracy, we need to do more. I don't think we have done enough. I don't think past governments have done enough. There may be several reasons. Permit me also be political. It's a bit justifiable because we are earning less now. And if we are borrowing now, we are borrowing for project. You can see what was done. I mean, what has been done to the railways. The complete revolution in the railway sector. Because we are borrowing straight to projects. The disaster is when you are borrowing for recurrent expenditure of overheads. Which was, of course, despite all the monies they earned at that time, the last government before the Buhari's regime, despite all the high earnings in oil, just before they left, they were already borrowing to pay salaries, despite all their earnings. So that is that. So I don't think we have done enough. But even as a government right now, we can do more. We have been hamstrung by dropping oil resources and all kinds of things. But of course, brighter days will come. But I can say that contextually, with what we have earned, the Buhari's government has done well. But by global standards, we may not have done well. If you don't put it in a context, we may not have done well. Now, for people who are also citizens of Nigeria, they also need to watch their tongue. Because it is this kind of inflammatory things and all that led us to a war before, that led to the collapse of republics, civilian governments.
Yes, and military intervention.
It was the burning. You remember the Waitie, what they call it?
Oh, yes, in the southwest.
In the southwest, the Waitie in the southwest, that led to the collapse of that republic. And so we see, when you see young people now burning INEC offices, burning police stations, it is a threat to democracy. And the problem is that as we have a generation going, it looks like we are going around in a circle, which is what the president was talking about, where people that have been putting it in all kinds of wrong context. The president was talking about it. He said, when you have younger ones now who did not experience the Civil War, that is why they are misbehaving. If they did experience the Civil War, if they experienced the Civil War, they will not be doing what they did now, what they are doing now. And so for people who also witnessed the collapse of the First Republic, the Second Republic, and what led to the collapse of those republics, they will not be doing what they are doing now. They will not be going to burn INEC offices, open police, kill policemen, and creating collapse of democracy. And that's what happened in the First and Second Republics. It was not a national crisis. It was a regional crisis.
Yes, in the First Republic, in the Southwest, in the Second Republic, again in the Southwest.
Again in the Southwest. It doesn't have to be national. So don't think that, it is restricted to the Southeast. It can lead to the collapse of democracy. And that's why we need to, perhaps we're going around circles. To answer your question, that we may not have learned, we may not have taught our younger ones enough to say, what you are doing, you are going to take us back again. Another 25 years. Because any military intervention sets us back again. We are going to begin all over again. That's the truth. A new constitution, a new all kind, you won't even know when they will leave. Transition upon transition will start, and all kinds of things will start again. And democratic tenets will be lost. And then these gains we have gained in the last 20, you can see the last 20 years, we have stumbled, we have gotten up, we've stumbled, we've gotten up. You can see that court decisions have reshaped our democracy. At the point we never knew that a governor can come and spend his 4 years, they thought, oh, the governor will come and... So court decisions came on and defined our democracy.
You contributed to that, because as the point at which you made, I recollect that you went to court to say the law does not allow the president to appoint service chiefs. He is to recommend.
I wrote and wrote and wrote to both leaderships of the House for 5 years. They didn't listen to me. Then one morning I woke up and said, I felt so bad about this, I went to court.
And so today?
Today, it is a precedent for that. So this is, these are the things we need to internalize. Most of these people burning and all. Look, listen, the right to protest must be protected. Do not forget that I don't want to do this interview by giving the impression that I'm against protests. I'm against, no. We rode on the back of protest to power.
Yes, we
rode on the back of protest.
Even before you joined politics, you were a very prominent protester.
Protesters, But then, we did it decently. We did it with a focus. We did it with the intention of gathering support so that we could legitimately push out a regime. You never saw us. I don't know, I may be wrong. You are a journalist, tell me. Have you seen any strong condemnation from the opposition party against the burning of INEC offices, freeing prisoners, and the mayhem going on? I have not seen, I've not read anything. I may be wrong. But these are not, this is not how to be opposition. They're not patriotic. Your voice must sound, even as an opposition party, you are part of the national project, the Nigerian project, because you have governors who are controlling about 14, 15 states. So you are part of the Nigerian project. Those governors are in charge of security in their states. So your governors and your party, they are also part of government. So when these things are happening, we want to see strong condemnation from also the ruling party, the opposition party. It helps to tell even the miscreants that they don't have support anywhere from the ruling class.
The ruling class that you mentioned is key, or has been key, to a lot of the things that have happened in the country, some of which we have talked about. And all along, all this while, I alluded to the fact that you were a lawyer. I remember it was the late sage, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who talked about the fact that documents or constitutions, I'm paraphrasing now, cannot be perfect, but they can be used for as long as the operators use them with the spirit and the intent for which they were made. And that the emphasis on rewriting and rejigging documentation while leaving the operators unaffected by it will be futile. Down the years since he made that statement, we have done several constitutions, we have amended, we have re-amended, and so on, and there are still complaints. Even as at June 12, one of the items with which people were negotiating support was the support for some kind of alteration of the ruling system. That far back. 2021, we are still discussing alterations to the rules. Now I want you to put on your legal hat now. Is it that basic document, people talk about the 1999 Constitution as being basically fraudulent, not being of the people, but it is what we have. Is it a question of that document being our problem, or is it the operators, those who have operated it since it came into being in 1999 that have exacerbated what are its flaws?
You know, the problem with an idea that is trumpeted a billion times is that no matter the falsity of that idea, no matter how bad it becomes somehow like a cliche and the truth, it becomes the truth. And I think that is what this whole idea of, 1999 constitution is fraudulent and all that has come to be. The students of jurisprudence all over the world, and I wonder at times why lawyers do this too, the students of jurisprudence know what it means to have a military government. A military government uproots what they call the present legal order and establish a new order. And we have decisions in Nigeria like that. 1966 coup, they were tested it in court and all of that. So when a military regime comes, it establishes a de facto government, not a de jure government, a de facto government. And that de facto government can make laws, can maintain law and order, because to the extent that it can maintain law and order, it becomes de facto. And so, when you now have a constituent assembly, no matter how unrepresentative it is or the flaws of it in its representation, and the military is going away, if you don't have rather de facto authority promulgating it into law, like it has promulgated laws into law, there's no way you can have a new order. It is when you now have a new order. The fraudulent nature of it is not in the fact that it is illegitimate, it is illegal. It is legal. It is legal.
It's a legal document.
It's a legal document. But is it representative enough, which goes to the legitimacy? But it is legal, and it's effective. And that's why they say we now hereby promulgate the decree by decree, the constitution into effect. I say we the people of Nigeria. We the people of Nigeria, to them is the Constituent Assembly. So it's not like the military sat and by their own made the constitution. And that's why they say, no, there was some kind of consultation. As maybe ineffective as it was. That's why they say, we the people of Nigeria. Now, but in that same document, take note, they have now given you the power to say, well, you cannot sit down and do and retune it to your taste. We just want to put something in place to live. And that's why you now say, I think section 9 that says, these are the steps you need to take.
To be able to alter it.
To alter it to your taste as you like. Whose fault that we can't sit down and do what we want then? Whose fault? It's our fault. They have gone. Don't keep blaming the military. We can then sit down. We can sit down and say, look, this is what we want now as a people. Now, unfortunately, you have a National Assembly that is a product of that constitution, representative of the people of Nigeria. Different federal constituencies are there and senatorial districts are there. Not only that, different constituencies too in terms of the state houses of assembly that are involved in constitutional amendment. That's how representative it is. Unless you bring another template, and this is what I voted for, whether you like it or not, you cannot say they are illegitimate. These people are legitimate in the sense that they were voted for by Nigerians. Unless you develop another template now, by which you also want to vote for people to a constituent assembly. Because to go to a constituent assembly, you still also need to vote for people. I see some regional leaders now who come and say, we are speaking for our region. And they cannot win some votes in their ward. Who gave you the right to speak for me? The only way we can test those who can represent is to vote them.
But so given this process, this process you've mentioned now, I just want to clarify something. Also still has to come from the National Assembly. It's not going to...
That's what I'm saying. We have no choice but to work with the National Assembly. This is the point I'm trying to make. Those people who come and pontificate, you see them on TV. They pontificate and say, no, National Assembly, go away. You are calling for a coup. The truth is that you are calling for a coup. Because anything outside that arrangement of Section 9 in the National Assembly is a coup. It's a revolution. I want to be as practical as possible. Somebody said, I read the other day and I said somebody was playing to the gallery. A lawyer, for that matter, playing and deceiving Nigerians, and they were clapping for him. That all the National Assembly needs to do is to promulgate a law now, calling for a referendum. And I said, oh, so the National Assembly can now make a law to override the Constitution. Very simple. What the lawyer was saying is that you now pass a law, the National Assembly should pass a law to call for a referendum, to now let the people decide. You can't pass a law to call for a referendum because there's no provision like that in the Constitution. All you need to do is to amend. You need to amend. So the way forward is for us to cooperate with the Omoagege-led panel now.
The Constitution
Amendment panel. Cooperate with it to the full and make sure we get what we want. Anything outside that is just playing to the gallery. Go back there. Make your submissions. Anything you want, go there. Let them get the benefit of your submissions. If you opt out, it's like what we did in 1999. You're opting out of the process. If a new concern is passed, don't come and complain. Because if we wait from now, Ladi, to the next 100 years, there's no National Assembly that will perform what they call harakiri.
Which is to legislate itself out of existence.
It's to legislate out of the just harakiri. They will not do it. It's be suicide. Political suicide. No, it's 100 years, it will not happen. It will not happen. Let's face the reality.
The constitutional amendment process itself is already quite difficult. And as I've spoken to some of your colleagues who say it is rightly and deliberately so that not every frivolous
government
can just come and just change the law.
And that's why Obasanjo could not get a top 10. That's why he could not get a top 10. Because he wanted to amend the constitution to get a top 10.
Well, that was thrown out along with a number of other things, which, well, with benefit of hindsight, some people regretted. But as a way of winding this up, I thought maybe you should now take a look ahead. Because a year from now, we'll be doing another June 12th. What do you think should be, again, the key lesson that the country needs to imbibe at this point? Because temperatures seem to be quite high in various places. For various reasons. Some are political, some are economic, others are social, some are religious.
It's access to power.
Basically,
all of these are all around access to power.
Which brings us to 2023.
Yeah, the access to power.
What is the key lesson we should take away from June 12th this year that we should all bear in mind as we continue along this journey?
One simple lesson, that the only way forward for Nigeria as it is now is our periodic elections. Anybody who is aggrieved, anybody who thinks the government is not doing well, anybody, organize yourself peacefully, post-protest, peaceful protest, peaceful organization in terms of collaborating with other people, vote out the government. We'll keep improving like that. We'll keep improving. And then we must encourage civil society that are calling for electoral reforms. Electoral reforms. I like the civil society groups that are harping on electoral reform. We must, until we get it perfect. We're not perfect yet, but we keep improving, of course. We are far, far, far away from the Morris Iwu era, when they were using unserialized ballot papers, unserialized, to vote. I mean, that was a mess. But now we're far away from that. Where we now have, card readers and all that. So you have a fair reflection of the result. I can tell you now. What we have now is a fair reflection of what is the actual votes on the field. There might be one or two glitches here and there. But I can tell you, anybody who loses now, loses fair and square. Who wins, wins fair and square, for now. So we have no other option but to continue to fine-tune the democratic process so that we don't go back again to the dark days of uncertainty and military rule.
You talked, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you talked earlier, and I want you to put this in your closing, put it along with your closing statement. You talked earlier when I mentioned the issue of nascent democracy and so on. You said there are democracies that are 200 years old, 300 years old. And the point I wanted to add is that they still seem to be fine-tuning their systems, even though they are 200, 300 years old. The UK, the US, and other such people that we aim to emulate. So ours, that is just over 20 years old, are we trying to run before we walk?
I think so. I think people are just getting unnecessarily impatient. Look, listen, when Donald Trump won in 2016, some part of America felt that was the end of America. How could a Donald Trump win? Somebody was anti-this, anti-black, and all that. Donald Trump is gone. It's just 4 years is a dot in the history of a nation. 4 years is a dot, just a dot. And what did they do? Obama had, mud on his face in 2016. You could see that he was completely embarrassed when they lost the presidency to the Republicans. What happened? You saw how much they worked hard that 4 years. They dug deep. And during the campaigns, Obama rolled up his sleeves and was everywhere convincing the American people. Did they burn buildings? Did the Democrats take to the street to burn? Did they call for revolution to remove because they had a president who they thought was mental and did not, run with ordinary American ideas? No, they knew it was just 4 years in the life of a nation. And so they dug deep. They didn't encourage anybody to go and burn everywhere, to go and loot, to go and make the country ungovernable. No, they didn't do that because they know that it is America that is their own. The America does not belong to Donald Trump. Some people think Nigeria belongs to Buhari, and so they must burn Nigeria down in order to hurt Buhari. That is the mentality of some of the people on the streets. The president will come and go. He has 2 years left, less than 2 years now to go. We need to preserve our country, whether opposition or activists or civil society or anybody. Nigeria first. Nigeria first.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
That's our program today. Thanks for watching. Would, of course, like to hear from you on what you've heard today and much more on our social media handles, which are right there on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast. I'm Ladi Akiri Duluale. Goodbye.